A man entered the Tower of London alive to learn humility and left only in paper form. Notes. Pharmacy prescriptions, confessions and sentences. Was it a sudden illness or domestic poison served with the coldness of someone who knows the way between the bedroom and the council? Today we open the dossier of the Thomas Overbury case 1613 to ask, when a royal favourite falls, what does the law decide, and what does the court stage? England, reign of James I. Thomas Overbury c. 1581 to 1613, poet, an essayist, backroom advisor and close friend of the royal favorite, falls from grace after opposing a strategic marriage at court. This marriage involves Robert Carr, Earl of Somerset c.1587 to 1645, a favorite of the king, meteoric rise, power through proximity to the throne, and Frances Howard 1592-1632, a noble woman of high birth, married very young, determined to annul her first marriage to unite with Carr. Overbury, who knew too much and spoke too fast, is pushed into a pedagogical prison in the Tower. There his health deteriorates. What should be political punishment becomes death, and when the death of an inconvenient advisor serves as a relief to many important people, the paperwork needs to be impeccable. Medical reports, chains of custody, custody agreements, prescriptions. Our axis is the same as always. Document gives mechanism, gives motive, gives consequence, gives legacy. In the Overbury case, the question is straightforward. What in the document service slips, Tower records, apothecary formulas, examinations, and confessions supports the idea of orchestrated poisoning, and who benefited when the official version came out? The trail begins in the routines. Who enters, who serves, who signs for the delivery of food and medicine. The Overbury cell is not just stone and straw. It is a distribution point where guards, maids, and bottles pass through. The typical pieces we will see in this chain: guard and supply records lists with times, portions, and signatures of the responsible gaoler. Small amendments and changes of hands are noteworthy. When a meal is not delivered by the person who should, the exception is recorded on paper. Apothecary prescriptions, formulas for the stomach, against fever, to purge biliousness. Common ingredients: rhubarb. Mild antimonials share space with ambiguous items when poorly dosed. The hands that prepare and the orders that authorize are the bridge between remedy and poison. Notes: quick requests. Bring broth. Change. Pillow improve mood. The domestic tone disguises mandates. The writer decides the patient's pace. Examinations and later confessions. When death becomes a matter of state, lesser voices emerge. Anne Turner 1576 to 1615, an elegant confidant with connections to noble households and apothecaries. James Franklin, a practical apothecary, a hand in the laboratory and at the counter. Richard Weston, a guard involved in the prisoner's care. Sir Gervase Helwys, lieutenant in the Tower, responsible for custody. Their words, taken during an inquiry, rearrange the kitchen and the apothecary as a crime scene. There is no laboratory smoke in every line, there is routine. And it is precisely in routine that court crime prefers to reside. A little extra powder in the correct recipe. A broth arriving by the wrong hands. An unusual signature. The rest, the story that sticks, begins when the council realizes that the documents tell the same story without matching witnesses. Routine becomes a case. When the consistency of the documents fails, deliveries are switched, notes are written in different hands, prescriptions are adjusted, and complaints of pain don't fit a typical prison case. When Overbury dies, the administrative sequence triggers 3 actions. Cut off, freeze, the service chain is suspended, and samples, remnants of broth, powders, ointments, and signatures are collected from those who touched the routine in recent days. Examinations and interrogations, minor names come into play. Richard Weston describes deposits and schedules. James Franklin details preparations. Anne Turner reveals purchases and orders. Sir Gervase Helwys tries to separate the guard from the apothecary and preserve his own responsibility. Documentary stitching, confessions, and cross-reference statements are taken to the council, which refers the case to the competent court with the theory of poisoning via domestic means. The keywords used in the terms appear: mixture, physic, powder, order. The tone is domestic, but the intention is political, to demonstrate that a routine chain was used for another purpose. The Jacobin legal machine transforms suspicion into a trial through 3 avenues. Jurisdiction by person. When names linked to the heart of the court emerge, the case rises from the level of prison to a matter for the council. The close relationship between Robert Carr and Frances Howard makes the narrative sensitive. Special committees, authorities are appointed to take evidence, hear confessions, and forward formal charges. Vocabulary changes from work of the Tower to poisoning. Chain of custody, who ordered, who bought, who manipulated, and who served are reconstructed. The same paper that releases the broth now sustains guilt. The public ritual formal sessions, proclamations is preceded by a cabinet process, gathering pieces, aligning testimonies, defining the classification treason, homicide, conspiracy. When the accusation finally appears, the public sees a ready-made story, the result of weeks of paperwork. Map the incentives. Carr protects his traffic in the king's chambers. An inconvenient opponent off-screen restores silence to the corridors. Frances Howard removes those who blocked her marriage and reputation policy. Annulling one marriage and signing another costs paper and godparents without Overbury, friction decreases. Service networks, pharmacies, servants, guards gain short-term currency payments, promises protection, and lose predictability if the case goes awry. The council reaffirms its authority. It shows that it knows how to manage scandals without putting the king center stage. The point is not to prove a single will moving everyone. It shows how many small gains move in the same direction. When the administration perceives this alignment, it chooses to name the phenomenon. Once named, it becomes punishable. When a scandal finds big names, the government works on two fronts: dismantling the routine that allowed the crime and redistributing trust. The Tower changes procedures, a more rigid chain of custody. Cross-supervision of kitchen, pharmacy, guard, signature without delegation in sensitive stages. In court, contracts, favors, and doors are rebalanced. Those who depended on Carr's influence learn to ask through other channels. Those who lived in Overbury's shadow seek a new patron. The council produces what it always produces when it needs to turn the page. It pronounces guilt on symbolic. People tidies up the house with memos and shows that the king is above the storm. Justice, to be credible, needs both names and rules. The thread of paper reaches its climax in the trials of 1615 to 1616. The narrative consolidated by the inquiries takes the form of sentences. Those who operated at the base of the chain are executed, and those who sponsored or profited from it at the top are punished in different ways. Richard Weston, James Franklin, and Anne Turner face the scaffold. The Tower records that the domesticated routine became evidence against the servants themselves. Sir Gervase Helwys falls with the cruel logic of his office. What went unchecked within his perimeter returns as a lack of custody. At the apex, Frances Howard admits guilt in the trial. Robert Carr resists, but the legal framework surrounds him. Formal punishments reach the couple. Royal graces, suspensions, extensions, clemency reveal the politics of the time. The king protects the institution, but prevents the scandal from completely consuming its former favored individuals. The public effect is ambivalent. The public sees exemplary behavior in the gallows and ambiguity in the clemency. The court sees a warning. Crimes that use routine as a weapon will be judged with the routine itself as evidence. The Overbury case sets 3 lessons. First, service papers notes. Prescriptions. Records can become evidence of homicide when they coincide unexpectedly. Second, the legal machine prefers to name the phenomenon, poison via domestic means, to have a clear target and prevent the dispute from turning into backstage poetry. Third, clemency at the top does not undo the principle. It only shows that, in court politics, justice and government share the same body, but with different hearts. In the long run, the episode enters the English memory as a warning against unbridled favoritism and against corridors that are worth more than the law. The archive, in turn, teaches method following. The routine is better than hunting the poison because the routine, when deviated from, leaves footprints. If a mixture of apothecary's advice and a note is enough to bring down a favorite, what can a doctrinaire rumor do to an entire kingdom? In the next episode, Poison in Politics, the Popish Plot 1678, when fabricated testimonies and religious panic turned paper into persecution,